everyone. We are here live on the campus of Hofstra University. I'm Kristen Thorne. We're going to be speaking with groups of young voters here about the issues in this campaign that they're concerned about, their excitement around this whole election, and the excitement here on campus. So thanks for joining us as we're streaming live on Facebook and also at ABC7NY. So we're going to go down the line, and each of the students is going to say their name, maybe what they're studying, so that way when you hear the questions, you kind of have a context of how they're answering those questions. All right, so we'll start with Neil.
All right. Well, I guess it's supposed to be ladies first, but my name's Neil A. Carousso. Kristen, great to see you today. I'm a senior here at Hofstra, journalism major, political science, and business minors.
Do you think that the excitement will actually translate into votes for younger people? That has been one of the highlights of this election, is getting young voters out. Do you think this year we may actually see that?
I hope so. I mean, to be honest with you, it's all about the millennial turnout. I did a piece, actually, that'll be on the website, abc7ny.com later. And basically, all about the millennial turnout is important because, you know, Donald Trump, a lot of his supporters, you have about 93% of them, according to some recent polls, that say that they're very adamant they're going to go to the polls on November 8th no matter what. But only 80% of Clinton supporters say they're going to head to the polls. So the difference is in enthusiasm. And I think you're going to have Trump supporters, they know that every vote matters. For Hillary Clinton, they're not too enthused about her. And that's what you're seeing around here is, all right, I'm going to vote for Hillary because it's the lesser of two evils thing. So I think that if people don't turn out for Hillary, that could give Trump a win, and it may be a surprise.
What about college costs? College tuition is out of control. That was a Bernie Sanders issue, and I want to bring Neil, terrorism.
For me, I think first and foremost is national security. I think without national security, and we're seeing in a post 9/11 world, it's all too frequent. Without national security, there's, you know, we can't even worry about economics, which is supposed to be, you know, the number one issue in any campaign. It's really national security and the economy are the top two issues. But, you know, you bring up college tuition, everyone cares about that on campus. But how do you go about that, and how do you make sure that people get education, but at the same time we're not charging people, we're not raising taxes on people who shouldn't be paying other people's tuition. And people are very adamant about that issue here on college campus, but I don't think that's a big national issue.
So, we just want to, see it played out on the battlefield.
Yeah.
I think, especially on the college campus, I even saw, we went to New Hampshire, and I covered the primary down there, and there was a group of Hofstra students who went down to New Hampshire, and they were so into Bernie Sanders at the rally, it was insane. And it was something like I've never seen before. the size of the rally, and they're very passionate, but I think they're more angry voters, kind of like what you see on the Trump side to some extent, that they're angry at the system. They want the establishment system blown up. You'll see some of them go to Trump, and then from people I talk to here, I think a lot of them just say, you know what, by default, I'm just going to go to Hillary, but I'm not enthused by it.
So we have some questions from Facebook Live, so thank you so much for those. Continue to do that. We'd love to answer them. So it seems that some people are asking about the trust issue with Hillary Clinton. A lot of young voters, we know, we've heard it, they said it, are going to be leaning towards her in this election, maybe because of their support of Bernie Sanders, and they figure, I'm just going to go over and vote for her, or because they value her as a candidate. The trust issue has come up. The Benghazi issue, there's a lot of, that's been in the polls, that people don't trust her. That word trust we keep hearing over and over. How are young people dealing with that issue, Neil?
Yeah, people don't trust Hillary Clinton. They don't trust both of them, young people. But for the most part, Hillary Clinton, they understand that, she destabilized Middle East. She caused a lot of issues there, led to, Trump says she's the co-founder of ISIS. That's a little bit of a stretch. But if you look at it, her policies led to negative effects in the Middle East. And then the emails, she used a bleach bit to, wipe away her emails. And she comes across very rehearsed. She comes across as a compulsive liar. She's been proven to lie, and there's a lot of questions whether, she should be charged for perjury right now. And then she takes money for the Clinton Foundation. There's a big pay-for-play questions. She takes money from Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar, the UAE, and there are concerns that, those countries who, treat women as second-class citizens, that, had a death penalty, especially Saudi Arabia has a death penalty for homosexuals, that there's a concern that she's being bought and that she's not really the champion of women's rights. And I think that's what millennials are concerned about. And, basically the overwhelming, majority of the electorate, they're saying, hey, how could she claim she's a champion and take this money?
She needs to be she kind of gives that mom feel off a little bit, but she probably has to calm that down a bit. So.
Right. What about for you?
I think Trump has to stay on message. I think the polls have shown that since Kellyanne Conway took over as his campaign manager, that he's been on message, he's stayed on teleprompter, and he's resonating with people. He's met with the Mexican president, he met with Benjamin Netanyahu yesterday, the Israeli prime minister. So I think that's the fact that he's staying on message and talking about real important issues is good for him. But he has to, in a non-rehearsed, rally, he has to be able to stay on message tonight. Also, he can't demean Hillary Clinton. I know there's a lot of questions about will he bring up, Bill Clinton's sex scandals and accuse her of, playing a part in that, in the discouragement of these women. I think he has to be careful to toe that line because he's going to be called a sexist if he does that. So, and that's pretty much every liberal kind of calls conservatives sexist, racist, homophobic. It's the generic thing. So they'll be able to accuse him of that if he goes that way. As far as Hillary goes, she just has to sound more human. I think she comes across like a robot sometimes, and if she shows more personality, she'll come across better.
Yeah, what about for you? What are you doing tonight?
It's the Super Bowl of politics, so you're going to be in front of the TV. I'm working for Eyewitness.
Chicken wings, popcorn.
You know what? Maybe I'll get Sade and
21.
Bill.
I don't know.
I turned 21 in November.
Okay, all right. So nothing for you
alcohol,
yet.
but I'll be with Sade and Bill tonight, so maybe I'll get them some hot wings. I don't know. Let's ask Sade and Bill if they want.
I know. Very good. Well, I thank you so much for joining us.
The country is at a place where people don't feel safe. We don't feel safer than we were 8 years ago. And when I thank the police and say, well, we appreciate your support because we don't feel that. And really good for Trump's campaign is the support of the police. Just getting word that Ohio, Trump leads there up 4, and that's where the polls are showing up. But there are so many issues that Trump supporters care about. And a lot of people who I talked to tonight, throughout the election, they care about things like health care. You have Obamacare, which is seeing rising premiums next year and deductibles as well. And when you talk about is the country better off 8 years later under a Democratic president than it was before, they're chanting "Make America Great Again" behind me. You talk about looking at healthcare. You're going to see premiums in places like Arizona skyrocketing 110%. And people are not getting quality health care as well. So people infuriated about the passage of that. Of course, it was rammed down through Washington under a Democratic Congress back in 2010. No Republican had voted for the Affordable Health Care Act. And people are infuriated about the rising cost and of health care, and it's also the quality is poor as well. So that's one thing people care about. People say, listen, we should go to a health savings account system, which is what Mr. Trump wants to do, because you look at the federal budget, and in a budget of about $4 trillion, we have a deficit of $19 trillion. When Barack Obama took office on January 20th, 2009, the deficit was at $6.31 trillion. It is now over $19 trillion, nearly $20 trillion. And what's costing the country and will continue to cost the country is health care, Medicare and Medicaid, as well as Social Security. And those are really the top 3 expenditures in the federal budget. And people see that. They see government incompetence with government money. So a lot of Trump supporters talk about that issue of healthcare, of the budget, and say, listen, we have to do something about this. We need to start running the country like a business, which is what a lot of people say. And, people have been saying that for years. Well, they finally had their candidate in Donald Trump. You're bringing up issues that haven't really even been touched upon too much in the course of this election, and has been overshadowed by media, discussing stories, salacious stories.
Sure, it's a headlines environment. We live in ads and whatever gets viewership, and it has to be entertaining. The issues that I care about, that Trump cares about, that America cares about, are not necessarily the most glamorous. However, they are the most important. it would be easier for me to support Clinton. It would be easier for me to stand up behind Clinton at face value and say, this is it. Trump's, says outrageous things. He's up late at night. He doesn't go to sleep on time, and he tweets. But at the end of the day, I believe in the substance of the issues.
I agree with both of them. I mean, I think people our age are mostly liberal. But when you look at it, the social issues are really not major issues that are going to determine this election. Yet you have a candidate like Ted Cruz who will focus on gay marriage, who will mention that he's anti-gay marriage, and that will alienate young conservative voters. I think for people our age, we don't care about the social issues as much. We don't, I think for the most part, people our age are pro-gay marriage. We all have friends who are gay or lesbian, and it's not a big issue. Even abortion, we could say the law is what it is, and Donald Trump eventually came to that conclusion. He made a big mistake, and that messed him up in Wisconsin, but you look at it, and on the face of it, it's the law. It's not going to change. Let's focus on national security. That has to be top priority, and let's focus on economics. And the two of those are major issues, but I feel the one thing I disagree with you on is that there aren't many conservative voters. And most people our age are liberal, and they agree with President Barack Obama, and most of them are siding with Bernie Sanders, to be honest with you.
Let's turn back to our panel, and a lot has been said about, Trump wanting to build a wall, about his ideas on improving, America's status in the manufacturing sector, and his views on how do you deal with ISIS. And they've been delivered in such a way that that sort of becomes the story. That isn't this crazy, isn't this outlandish? These are issues of importance to millennials. So do you think that personalities in this campaign and the way things have been said and the way things come out really cloud where the candidates stand on the issues? And do young Republicans really know where the candidates stand on the issues when they go to the polls on Tuesday?
Yeah, I'd say no. I think young people don't pay attention to the race as much as we do. Just by talking to Maddie and Johannes before, I could tell. I mean, we follow it every single day. We live and breathe it. And for someone like me who's covering it and been in New Hampshire and see that those people, especially in New Hampshire, they want to make sure that they make the right decision because they feel like their vote matters so much. In New York, I'm not sure that the vote matters as much because they know it's a liberal state, and come the general election, it's not going to come down to New York. It's come down to New Hampshire. It's going to come down to Ohio, Florida. New York, I feel like a lot of New Yorkers, and being a born and raised in New York, a lot of people aren't that concerned about it. But I think people don't really pay attention to it as much. And as far as the rhetoric, things get lost in the rhetoric every day. Hillary Clinton, her laugh bugs people, and that draws a lot of attention. Her getting through the turnstile. Bernie Sanders complaining about the bankers, and people like to do imitations. And Donald Trump, whatever he says, they're broadcasting his speech live, and people like to say, well, he's getting more media attention. He's smart. He knows that it's more valuable to go on, make himself accessible, go on live, on Fox News, on CNN, on all the stations, and local radio as well. And he knows that that's better than just sending out TV ads. Didn't work for Marco Rubio, especially in his home state of Florida. And Trump was there. And I think the ground game is important as well, but it's the narrative. I know someone at Hofstra, I go to Hofstra University as well with Johannes, and I'm sitting in political science class, and we had John Kasich was there for a town hall a couple of weeks ago. And his decision, he actually changed his mind and said, I'm going to support John Kasich now because he saw Kasich. My teacher was like, well, what made you change his mind? Well, I thought he was a nice guy, whatever. Yeah, he's a nice guy. And I understand if you could talk about the issues, but it was just because you saw him in person and maybe shook his hand. That's not how we should be voting. We should be voting, you should be changing back and forth. You should be voting based on the issues. The wall, for example, I mean, they started the construction in 2006 with 670 miles of construction, cost us $2.4 billion. It stopped in 2009 when President Barack Obama took office. So if we continue that path, and there was a video last month that showed someone smuggling drugs jumping over the border, well, we need to secure that border just because we need national security. People, refugees that are coming in, they're infiltrating the population. I said they're going to do that. They've done it in Europe. So if you're going to secure the wall, and everyone on the GOP side supports that, what's the plan? And that's what we need to know is what's the plan? And if Mexico is going to pay for it, as Trump says, well, what is the deficit? Because we don't even know that number. I looked at government records. We spend $233 million on average to Mexico for things like border control and also security, and also, clean, to keep the area clean. So if we're spending $233 million a year, what's the deficit? Can they pay for it? Who knows? But let's talk about that. There's no question Donald Trump has been good for this race. I mean, he's brought up issues. I don't think without him bringing up the wall on day one, we would be talking about that. Yes, it brought tons of controversy, but if he didn't bring up the wall, would John Kasich be supportive of that? Would Marco Rubio be supportive of that? Ted Cruz? I don't think they would, because it's cautious territory to bring that up and alienate some illegal and legal immigrants. However, Trump and you mentioned this, Maddie, Trump and Bernie Sanders have both channeled into that anger, that voters have that emotion that they're going out to vote for Trump because they feel the political system's corrupt, it's rigged, as he said today and yesterday. As Bernie Sanders is saying, political system's rigged, and it's the money and the Wall Street has influence. But what people, and I think what people want now is they want someone, they've been hating politicians for years, and finally they have two candidates, one being a senator for many years of Vermont, and one being Donald Trump, who is, you wouldn't think, is a politician at all. He's trying to refine himself a little bit. He makes those missteps, but I think because it's Donald Trump, it's okay because he's not a seasoned politician, and it makes him human in a way. But I think both Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders have channeled that anger. And when you talk about Wall Street, well, Bernie Sanders says, well, Wall Street, is paying off these politicians. Well, Donald Trump said, I paid, to Democrats, I paid to Hillary Clinton.